going to be talking about some eating disorders today on our podcast, Everybody is a Good Body, changing the narratives on eating disorders. So, I'm Wyvern.
I'm Kamryn.
I'm Kaycee.
And we have all had eating disorders in our lives. They suck. So, we just want to get on here and tell you that they suck and you shouldn't get one, and neither should your kid. And here's how you help them not get one.
And also, like, outside of that, of like, just, you know, informing you in case you don't know about it, or letting you know our experiences, just so you can support yourself or support your children, or this podcast can be for anyone who eats.
Yes, anyone.
You're not alone. Food is difficult, and that's okay. So, I didn't really have a name for my eating disorder or whatever. I just kind of didn't eat. And then if I did eat, when I did eat, because you have to eat at some point or else you're not going to live.
Oh my God.
When I did eat, I would hide it. So it just kind of didn't really come out too much of I'm okay with eating in front of people. And that's difficult when you like going to places with people.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. I would literally, people would invite me out to eat, and because I have bulimia, which is my personal experience, I would be like, oh, I can't eat this here because, like,
Oh,
so I would
man.
just like bite on it a little bit, then go home and then eat, and then, you know, bulimia comes with purging, which is not a good experience for anyone. Also, to our viewers, I promise we do actually take this seriously, but at this point, it's like a trauma response to laugh about it.
You have to laugh about it so you don't cry.
Literally laugh or cry, and I'm not going to cry today. I already did that.
Like, we actually do take this really serious. We've done a lot of research on the topics. We'll talk about things like of our own personal experiences,
Yeah.
things that we've learned. I promise we do take this serious, so please don't think that it's a joke. I mean, we're going to joke about it, but it's not an actual joke.
Eating disorders aren't a joke. Jokes about eating disorders are jokes.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
For sure. I guess both of you guys spoke a little bit about what you had going on, so I'll open up too. I had binge eating disorder, so that also has like purging, and it's very similar to bulimia. They're like two Venn diagrams together, basically.
Yeah,
But
there's some overlap. for
Sisters,
sure.
not twins.
But for me, what that would mean is like going back to sort of talking about how you guys would be eating with other people. For me, that would mean like I'm eating with everyone and everything's fine, but you guys don't know when I'm disappearing for long periods of time.
Oh my gosh, that's so fair.
I'm getting rid of the food in some way. So,
Valid.
and that's what purging is for anyone who doesn't know, but we'll get more into that in a moment.
Yeah, so specifically eating out is very, very difficult. But also in our day in life and the way that we exist as people, like going out to like a coffee place or somewhere to get something to eat is kind of the only third space we have. Third space is something that's not at home or work. Work can mean school. So like going out to get something to eat is like one of the only options you have for a third space. And so it really minimalizes your ability to have social relationships and friendships and just society at large.
So,
Right.
so definitely having an eating disorder affected like a lot of my relationships, because not only was I being more secretive, I was lying and like pretending that things weren't an issue that were an issue. I'd created this story that, I mean, eventually became true, because I started my eating disorder because my friend talked me into it. They were like, look at how much weight I lost, and I've gotten so skinny now. And I guess in my 16, 17-year-old brain, I was like, that's a great idea. You're so smart. I don't really know what I was thinking then. I obviously wasn't.
That's definitely a common thing, though.
Yeah.
I would not blame yourself for that.
Yeah. It's just so easy to go back and be like, what?
What in
What's
the world was
going
going
on in
on?
my brain? But at that time, I didn't know what I know now about it and how it would affect me.
It's
But-
also so easy to judge yourself.
So easy.
Like, buddies, can we just, like, not judge ourselves because when we did these things, we knew less. And that's just the way the world works. That's just the way people work. And that's okay.
Right.
You are a human being and you are fallible. And
So true.
it's fine. You're gonna forgive other people for, like, having an eating disorder. You're not gonna be mad at them. You're not gonna think they're stupid. You're just gonna think that they had a problem.
Yeah.
Also, just for our audience, I have ADHD, and I've already forgot my main point, so I may get back to it. I may not. It's just not there in my brain anymore. So if that happens, I apologize.
I apologize.
I was gonna say, going off what Wyvern said though, a lot of people don't even know what disordered eating or an eating disorder is. So that
true.
could definitely contribute to this sort of like reflection back on childhood and not really realizing what we were subjecting ourselves to. And we do have a definition that we compiled from multiple sources for that.
Yeah, for sure. An eating disorder is a serious mental and physical condition that involves maladaptive eating habits and a preoccupation with thoughts of food and their body. Now, an eating disorder does not mean that you have disordered eating. Well, it kind of means that you have disordered eating.
Yeah, if you have an eating disorder, you have disordered eating. But if you have disordered eating, you don't necessarily have an eating disorder.
Right.
And that's not and neither of those is true 100% of
Yeah.
the time. There are ways that you can have an eating disorder that you do not have disordered eating. Like if you are just purging through means of like exercise, which is a way to purge.
Oh, true. Yeah.
It's not affecting the way that you eat. It's just affecting the way that you fix your life around eating.
Right.
And that is just as problematic.
Well, I don't know if that would necessarily be defined as an eating disorder in that sense. Like, if it's just excessive exercise, like, you would have to have that relationship with food. You know what I mean? Because some people, like, there has to be a food aspect to it. Because if you eat, like a regular, consistent diet, and then you're doing a lot of excessive exercising, that might be, like, an issue just with body image and exercising. I don't know if that necessarily falls under eating disorder. I think you have to have an issue with the food itself for that to be considered purging. Like, if you're doing it as a way to expel, like, you eat a Snickers and you're like, I have to run this off immediately, I can't, like, that might be considered a bit of one. But just excessive exercise without the eating factor, I don't know if that would fall under eating disorder.
But also being like
specifically.
scared of food that is outside your norm,
Or scared of weight gain.
or scared of weight gain.
Basically, just like I would say, another good way to think about it is just sort of having an unhealthy relationship with food and the thoughts about your body, maybe. What do you guys think about
We're
that?
also
Yeah,
not
for sure.
professionals, so
Yeah, no.
We are students that have had problems.
and
That's
if you
all
go
we
into the
are.
DSM-5, they have such like strict specifications.
Like,
that
you have to meet so many requirements to be considered to have something, and then you may meet those requirements at one point in your life and then not another. It's just a lot.
It's also so complicated to read. Like, if you've ever tried to read the DSM and you're just like, this... What?
Honestly,
Like, that's okay. It's not for the layman.
Not
It's
not
even-
common reading,
It's
you know.
not even really for psych students necessarily. It's really for
Professional diagnosis.
professional diagnosis for
but like also for a professional who can take this and like utilize it to like a real living person that's not going to fit one set of specifications for one thing or another. Like, you can have
Yeah.
more than one eating disorder at another time. You can have little bits and pieces of different ones. Some people might fit the very strict definition. Not everyone's going to do that though.
but a lot of it is also for billing insurance, which
Oh
gets
my
into
gosh, insurance.
a
Oh,
whole nother
Let's not
segment that we
even-
don't need to go
let's
to
not even go there.
today.
that'll be on
So-
a different episode where we talk about
All of the terrors of living in a society.
I mean, sure. The
Um,
terrors.
Some of the things in the DSM-5, though, that are eating disorders that we're mentioning or not mentioning, because we're not going to cover everything. Of course, we can only do so much.
Yeah.
Is anorexia nervosa, which has to do with extreme restrictive diets, bulimia, which Kamryn already mentioned.
Yeah, it can be the feeling of needing to binge, which is like eat an excessive amount all at one time, and then purge, which is expelling it in some way, shape, or form. However, that wasn't my experience. I didn't necessarily binge. I kind of ate consistently like normal.
Right.
I just didn't let anything sit in my stomach. Like the second I was alone after, that's when I would purge it. So it can fit a couple different scenarios.
And that's where binge eating disorder is very similar. I think binge eating disorder can include purge, but it focuses a little more on binging, and
yeah, not everyone does purge. They just have moments where they just, it's like you have to eat something. Like I've talked to some people who have had very extreme binge eating. I've watched a couple of TikToks about it. It's like you don't have that control.
It definitely is like a feeling of loss of control. I know some of the literature that we read for this podcast on it was actually talking about how a lot of times for adolescents, they do this because like they're feeling almost like feelings of negativity or whatever, and they're just like eating their feelings, so to speak. And that's not every case, of course, but that was something that I related to. Is I find a huge comfort in food, and so a trigger for me to binge is if I am having those really negative emotions or feeling not connected to my family or any number of things.
Yeah, there's also the whole binging thing surrounding like not necessarily eating your feelings, but just needing to control something. And so you control what you eat, you control how much you eat, you control when you eat.
Yeah, that's true.
And that can be a really powerful thing for a lot of kids because they don't have any control over most of their lives.
Kids definitely have that lack of control, so I completely agree with that point.
Yeah.
And purging could also be a means of control. If we're talking about excessive exercise, that's something you can control. Making yourself vomit takes a lot of work.
But you can control it.
Oh my gosh, I just remembered my main point a million years ago.
Go ahead. No, say it.
It's fine. It was just talking about like it's fine. I'm not even going to get into it because I remember parts of it, but not how I led into it, and I don't remember what I said anymore, but it just popped in my head, and I was like, oh, yeah.
That's totally fair. Feel free to reinsert it at another point if it comes back to your mind, please, Kamryn.
I'll try to bring it up naturally, which was not natural when I just said, oh my god, I just remembered what I was talking about.
It's okay. We're all human. That's why we're here doing this podcast.
So true.
You can also control if you take diuretics. Like,
man, eating disorders really are a lot about control. I don't think I've ever thought about it specifically in that way. That it's just something that you feel that you have to do, and it's like being able to do something, because I always felt like, oh, this is me doing something, and now I don't feel guilty about eating. And
right.
But also eating purging can also look like a reaction to like if your parents ever did like the clean plate club, chewing it and then spitting it out without them noticing. Oh, I'm gonna go.
I feel like that would be so hard.
No,
to keep up with the spit. But
I
also,
used to
I kept
do
up
that.
with throwing up.
I'm not trying to be gross, but I used to do that. Like, my parents were definitely like clean plate club people. We only most of our childhood we only had dinner, which could also explain the binge purge cycle for me. So we would only eat dinner, and then we had to eat everything we were given. And I remember my little sister would do this too, and she actually recently got diagnosed with an eating disorder, unfortunately. But she and I both would I'd be like, just put the food, this is terrible of me, but I'd be like, just put the food in your mouth and go spit it out on the toilet if you can't eat it.
It's so crazy how something small like that, though, could lead to
right,
like a consistent doing it so much that it becomes a habit.
And in that situation, like, I take full accountability for my actions, but I
Well,
would
you're
I would
young.
say like we were kids and we didn't know what else to do. Like if your parents are forcing you to eat to the point that you're like feeling sick or something, because you can't eat. Well, I don't want to speak for everyone, but it's not typically considered healthy to just wait until the end of the day and eat the amount of food that you need to eat for an entire day. So it's hard to force yourself as a kid to do that.
Yeah, it's really hard to force yourself as a kid or as an adult to do that. There's this whole thing of like intermittent fasting nowadays, and that works for some people.
I hate that.
But
I
the
literally could
problem
never.
is
Yeah.
that it doesn't work for all people. And a lot of people see it as see all diets, all fads as monoliths, that if it works for me, it can work for you. And that's
oh,
just
gosh.
not true.
Well, the other problem too, since we're talking about like kind of diet culture, is like I really have a problem with this idea of like that diets are like long-term sustainable, and I think that's what a lot of us think, like we can just do keto or fasting or whatever for forever, and that actually is not good and can lead to
Oh my
eating
God.
disorder issues.
I just saw this video the other day of day like 21 of 365 of being on keto, and
Here's
I'm
the
just
thing,
like,
once you get off keto, that all
gonna-
comes back to you. The second you
That's
start
with all
eating,
diets though, because
Yeah.
it's literally you're restricting your eating things you don't, rather than focusing on let's have a healthy relationship with food, let's work on even portion control, even though I hate those words. You're focusing on let me restrict myself from these things that I actually want and my body on some level needs, and then you go right back to doing whatever it was you were doing before. Of course you're going to have weight fluctuations.
yo-yo dieting is more a signal for health problems down the road than being fat.
Yeah.
And the problem is people think the next one is always going to work.
Oh, that's so true. Like, you get your hopes up, but when I've, like, tried dieting in the past or just, like, eating healthy when you do certain things, I personally will get obsessive about it.
That's
and
my
it
issue.
brings me back into negative behaviors of when I had an eating disorder that I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll get, and like if I go to the gym consistently, I'm like, I have to push myself, I have to do better. And it's like, I want to change my mentality of, I just want to feel comfortable in my skin, because diets don't work if your main goal is to just like lose weight and be skinny. Like, you have to fix your relationship with food before you can do that. You have to accept that food is what nourishes you. Food is what's going to get you through your day. And yes, you can change how you eat food and how you view food, and you can exercise more to feel better. But even if you do an eating disorder, you're not going to be happy in your if you have do an eating disorder. If you have an eating disorder, you're not going to be happy
I
in
mean,
your skin.
it
You
is an
do
action that you're
excessive
doing.
exercising, you have like these crazy diets that you're doing. You're never going to be happy with your skin and your body because you didn't work on that relationship. You need to learn to like your body as it is right now, and then you can try to work on changing it in ways that would make you like your body more. But if you don't value your body and who you are and how you feel, then none of these things are going to work. You could get so skinny and then be like, I'm not skinny enough, I have to keep doing more. I think that's really the cusp of like an eating disorder, is just not valuing your body. You always trying to do something else to change it, and then like the way people portray food and body image and just the whole industry of like social media and anything promotes such toxic behaviors that do not promote appreciating your body for what it does.
It makes money to tell you
So
that
true.
you're wrong.
Oh, so true.
Yes.
And it doesn't make money to tell you that to help yourself, you have to love yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we have like plastic surgery trends and all of these other things.
Which is not to say there's anything wrong with plastic surgery.
Plastic
If
surgery
you're
is
doing
fine.
stuff to make yourself like your body,
Yeah,
because
I'm not saying that's wrong,
like
but
your body, not because you're trying to fit an image of somebody else, I think that's where it gets a little hanky if you think about it.
I agree. I would say the overall take-home message that we're all getting at is just really the importance of forming a healthy relationship with food, not only for yourself, but if you're a parent, for your children.
Yeah, we really hope that there are kids who want to, like, or parents who have kids that, like, listen to this and take from this, because I don't think any of us had anyone notice what was going on. We didn't have anyone with that experience that could help us, and it can get extremely out of hand very quickly.
And also, just noticing is not good enough. Noticing
And making changes and supporting.
Noticing is not good enough, because if you just notice and you're like, oh my god, you look so great, that's actively harmful.
Oh,
That's
that was
enabling.
the worst. When you have an eating disorder and people are like, you look so good now, and you're like, oh, but I feel genuinely horrible.
Oh, but I
Right.
feel the worst I ever have.
Yeah.
That's not helpful. The helpful thing is, hey, I'm noticing this is going on. This doesn't seem like a healthy way to, like, do the living thing. So, like, how can I help you help yourself and your relationship with food?
That's actually a good segue to end out this and let you know that that's what we'll be talking about on our next episode, about, like, signs, what, like, causes, what can be done, and then we'll eventually get into like, how you can work through that and things that can happen if you actually do have an eating disorder. So yeah, I think that's a good episode 1. I hope you all
Woo!
enjoyed our time. I hope you learned a little bit. Take something away from this.
And listen to our next podcast episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a beautiful time.